Wow. Wow.
Is that really loud?
Yeah, what an
You
audio.
got to turn down your roadcaster.
Which one? This one?
Folks, I'd like to know if you're hearing that loud or if it's just Radio Free Mormon who is.
Oh my gosh.
So let us know in the
My
comments.
brain's out all over the soundstage.
Hey, one little thing you would want to do in your settings, the very last box says to control the volume, to adjust the volume. I'm talking to you.
Okay.
I'm talking to you. In the settings, if under your audio, if you'll have the last box checked, which says for it to monitor and adjust your volume without you having to do it.
Under the audio?
That might be part of. Yeah. So in the settings under audio, the very last one is automatically adjust mic volume.
It's
and
checked.
if you, make sure that one's checked. Okay. Well, I don't think anybody else is experiencing the loud sound. So, it was louder than usual. People are saying it was.
Aha.
Well, there.
See,
didn't mean to blast your ears with our applause.
We just have a very enthusiastic audience tonight. By the way, if anybody even cares anymore, it's a blue T-shirt with, yes,
Thor,
the mighty Thor.
Yeah.
Do you know the name?
He's
of
not
Thor's
much without that hammer. What's that?
Do you know the name of Thor's hammer, by the way?
Thor's hammer.
Very good. Okay. We have some lovely parting gifts for you, Mr. Reel.
I didn't even have to play Plinko, so I got a gift without having to do that.
But guess what? This is Mormonism Live. It's episode number 162. Today's date is January 10th, 2024, and the title of tonight's show is Temple Madness. What is that? Like a riff on something, Bill?
Well, you guys came up with the name Temple Madness. But I decided to create the thumbnail. I asked you guys for permission, of course, got consent. I'm a big believer in that. But I suggested that we do it in the theme of reefer madness, which was sort of that like film showed to kids back in like high school in the 70s to show them that using marijuana was a bad thing.
Might have even been in the 50s. I'm not sure, but yeah, it goes back a ways.
Could have
reefer
been.
madness. Okay, so the whole idea of tonight's show, and by the way, here's how tonight's show came about, folks, is that Bill at first thought he was not going to be able to be here on Wednesday. And so it fell to me. I said, fine, I'll take care of it, which means I immediately called someone else. And that someone else I called was Rebecca Bibliotheca. And I said, hey, can you come on the show Wednesday? Next to no notice, right? But I figured she'd be up for it. And she was. But I suggested we interview her. And she says, no, I don't want to be interviewed. I don't want to talk about my life story. Let's have a subject. And if parts of my life come out as part of that, that's okay. And I said, okay, so what do you want to do? She says, well, why don't we talk about the strange and sometimes humorous incidents that happen to Latter-day Saints in the temple? And I said, boom, absolutely. And you're going to be on. You're going to be a guest. And it's your idea. So can we just bring her on the screen?
Oop, let me get rid of that.
Drawn and quartered.
I was, wasn't I? Hello. How are both of you tonight?
I'm doing great. Did I doing a good enough job giving you credit for tonight's show?
I see how you carefully laid that out. That's right. Temple Madness. That was all me.
Thank you so much. And I know Maven is with us tonight as well.
Yeah.
And there she is.
Adjusting my camera angle. Sorry.
Just FYI, I'm going to jump off really quick, reset my computer, and I'll be back. But you guys continue on.
Okay. That's too bad because I needed him. But I bet, Maven, you can help me out here. What we're going to do is each of us is going to tell a story relating somehow to the temple. And then we're going to open it up. And we may open it up to calls even in between stories that we're telling. But we're very interested in hearing the stories that audience members have had relating to the temple. And we've got a couple ways of doing that. And one of which is you can call in. And what is that number? It has 3 6s in a row someplace in it.
Yeah.
And a bunch of 7.
I will get it up on the banner, but it is 662-667-6667. So I will get that up.
Okay, thank you so much. So you can call into the show with your temple story. Or if you're in the live chat, is this correct, Maven? If you're in the live chat, yeah, right there. You can click on that StreamYard link. If you got a computer which has a camera, microphone, most of them come equipped.
Whoops,
then
that's
you
not
can do
quite
that.
what I wanted. Sorry.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, there was a. I'll fix it.
Okay. And so if you can appear magically on the screen to tell your story, if you want to do that. So we'll try and juggle this as best we can. And are you still working on that, Maven?
There it is. And I will also put it in the comments. So I have it on the screen now. Let me go ahead and put it in the comments.
Write that down. 662-667-6667.
And so if you're watching from YouTube, you should be able to click the link that I will eventually get up here. So thank you for your patience, everyone. And yeah, do you want me to start off with my story, or is there more? Okay.
No, that's it.
All right.
You're up to bat.
Okay, this is one that I've told before, so it's going to be familiar to some people, but this is about my very first time going through the temple. You know, your whole life, and especially your teenagehood, it kind of funneled to this ending, to someday end up going through the temple. Well, actually, not even just teenagerhood, but it's there where they're really worried that you'll mess it up with sex, or the opposite sex, I guess, to ruin your chances. Anyway, so I finally get there, and I'm going through as preparation for my mission. I get through all of it. I'm in the celestial room, and I'm feeling pretty okay and decently calm. I think really I was relieved to have finally gotten there and finally, made this achievement, been inducted in as an adult in the religion. Anyway, I'm feeling good, and the room is quiet and it's peaceful. And there was this older lady from my ward that came up to me, and I'm a very short person, but she happened to be someone that's shorter than me. So I remember just looking at her. She's got the white curly hair. She's looking up at me, and she has a smile on her face as she tells me in just a really bizarrely jovial tone that it used to be really different when she went through the temple. And as she's smiling, she explains to me that we used to mime slitting our throats and disemboweling ourselves. And she does the actions right there in front of me. And I just remember being hit with just how awful and barbaric that sounded to me, that was part of the oath, that there was penalties. She explained that there used to be penalties, and that that people would physically do those kinds of actions in the temple, that's this most sacred of all places. And again, just the bizarre way that she had this smile on her face, like it was nothing, just back in my day. We were a little intense about this. I don't know. It was something that was like deeply disturbing to me at the time. And I had to scramble my brain had to scramble to try to solve that cognitive dissonance. And there was a legitimate kind of record scratch moment where just my brain froze to try to figure out a way to kind of make this okay. It was just a really abrupt ending to the whole ceremony and everything, and just very, very bizarre. And that's my story.
How interesting. And sometimes that can be used for dramatic effect. I think, was it Forrest Gump where they have the Vietnam scene where they're dropping all the napalm on everybody, and the background music that they're playing while all this is happening is Louis Armstrong singing "What a Wonderful World." Right?
I don't think that was her intent.
No, but it sounds like it was similar.
The effect it had made it far more eerie.
Yes.
Than if she had a more serious face as she was explaining something like that.
Yes. Well, I'm glad she didn't tell you what they used to do to the puppies on the altar.
Oh, no.
So, anyway, so thank you very much for that. Now, Bill Reel is back. By the way, do we have any phone calls yet or anything showing up?
There are 2 or 3 calls in the bank right now. Yes.
Oh, you want to just grab one and then we'll go.
Let's do it. Let me let's grab that. So let's see here. I believe we have maybe a Wendy on the phone. Wendy, are you there?
Oh, hi. This is me. Am I on, Josh?
You are.
Can you hear me?
Is it too loud, RFM? Yeah. Man, gosh, okay, I'll turn it down.
Okay, I apologize. There's a delay. I'm moving away from my husband's watching you because there's a delay, and so it was throwing me off. I have only funny stories in the temple, but I'm going to share what I think is the best one. I'm talking too loud. I can hear it. I'm from New York. I'm sorry.
No, it's not you. It's our sound.
My brother was getting married.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, sorry. My brother was getting married in the Logan Temple. My sister-in-law was going through the night before. My sister and I were, both endowed. We've both been on missions and gotten married ourselves. So we're watching this ceremony, and the old man in charge that was standing in the front was mouthing it all. The whole entire thing, he's mouthing it. And I made a comment at the end to my sister, some dry, sarcastic thing about how he must have been working in the temple a long time because he had it memorized. And my sister starts giggling. And I start giggling. And we start having a laughing fit. And she felt so bad. She apologized to the matron, who ripped her a new one. And then me, being the supportive sister that I was like, why did you apologize? What?
Wendy, are you
sorry,
giggling
say that again?
Are you giggling in the middle of the endowment session?
No, we were outright laughing toward the end. We were outright laughing. No, it was at the end. We waited to the end. It was when we were waiting to go into the celestial room. Yeah, it happened at the end. That's why I didn't feel bad. I didn't feel bad at all. But my sister felt really bad and tried to apologize, and she got shredded. They said we had ruined my sister-in-law's experience, da-da-da-da-da. To this day, I disagree, and I thought it was the funnest thing I'd ever had happen in the temple. But anyway.
Yes. Oh, my gosh.
So, yeah.
Well, it was just ruined, that's all.
Yeah.
That is funny, Wendy.
So anyway, that's my favorite one. Okay, you guys. We love you guys. My husband and I love you. We love watching you. See you later.
Thank you so much, Wendy. This is why there's not supposed to be any loud laughter in the temple. Right. Is there anybody else?
I was laughing for that, RFM, just so you know.
You were what?
I was laughing.
We've got more if you want them.
Reference.
Am I Sebastian?
No, at the no loud laughter.
Are you reference. Sebastian?
Sebastian, yeah. But
I don't know.
Well, it was just ruined, that's all. You don't know that?
No, I mean, I knew it was a German accent you were using, but...
It's supposed to be Jamaican, man.
Man. I don't know what that is. Yeah. Sorry. It sounded German to me.
Little Mermaid? But she didn't show up for rehearsal okay, never mind. So, moving right along with the show, who do we have up next, Bill?
Well, we can take, I believe there's a person named Lee on the phone. Lee, are you there? Hello?
Hello?
Yeah. What's the name?
Oh, hi. My name is Heidi.
Heidi. It said hi, Lee. Okay, hi, so go ahead.
Oh, Heidi.
Yeah,
sorry.
Heidi. We got it now.
It's been a long day.
Now we're cooking with gas.
There we go. So basically, I was going to share a time when I did my great aunt's endowments for her, for, the dead, right?
Mm-hmm.
It'd been a long day, and I was in the Seattle temple, and it was a super long day, and I was tired, and I started to nod off because once the movie turned on, it was nap time, right? I swear, I don't know how to explain this or how to frame it anymore, but I felt a nudge in my rib cage and a wake up, girly, in my ear, and no one said a thing next to me. So I have no idea what that was. And then I thought it was my Aunt Harriet. Now, not a clue. But yeah, it was kind of my story. So.
You got a nudge from the Holy Ghost.
It might have been. I like that. Yeah, I have no idea what it was, but what?
Yeah, what do you think it was now?
I don't know what it is. I'm having a hard time reframing things since I no longer believe in the church or the things, so I don't know. Maybe just my own conscience trying to wake myself up because I was feeling guilty. I don't know. For sleeping during the movie. I don't know.
So what side did this come from, your left or your right?
My left.
Was there someone sitting there? Because this is my first thought.
Well, yeah, but when I looked, she she was asleep too. So
oh, she was faking.
I don't
She was
know.
faking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was on the end.
You were on the end.
Yeah, we were all sleeping. I was on the end. Yeah, I was on like the aisle end, and she was to my left. So yeah, no, I don't know what it was, but it was something.
Yeah. Well, I'm
Maybe
glad
it was my great aunt saying, "Wake up and run."
Or wake up so you remember my new name.
I don't remember her new name. I barely remember mine, Lucy. But oh,
Well,
did I
let's hope
just
that
share
your
my new
aunt
name on
remembers
YouTube? Oh no.
That's all that's important is that your aunt remembers.
Yeah, I don't know. This is true. It's only important if she remembers it, not me. But yeah.
And especially your husband.
Well, I'll let you go on with the show, but I love you guys. You guys have helped me a lot with deconstructing. I appreciate you guys very much.
Thank you, Heidi.
Heidi, thank you so much for calling in.
Yep. Have a good night.
You too.
So just FYI, RFM, when you and the caller are talking at the same time, it kind of like fuzzes out both of you, and so we can't hear.
Oh, yeah. Heidi was
you.
interrupting me a lot, wasn't she?
Yeah, that's
Heidi quit interrupting me. Okay. I kid. I'm the interrupter.
Yeah. All right.
Just
So
in case he doesn't know that by now. All right. So I think we've got, is Martine down there? Martine has logged in.
yeah, let's bring her on.
Martine, how are you doing?
Good. Oh, I see my phone's in
is-
there.
That is
why
the
I have-
second biggest cell phone I've ever seen in my life. How do you even pick that thing up? Oh, I see. Okay. So you've got a great story about the temple, don't you?
Yeah, I wrote you today about that. So I live in Salt Lake City, and I have for nearly 30 years. And so from 1995 until 2010, when I quit attending the temple, the Salt Lake Temple was my temple. One of the things I liked actually was the live actors, because you never knew what to expect. There was often, not always, but often a little surprise around the corner. So this one was probably the biggest one. So this was a Ward Temple night. So it was a weeknight, and it was the last session of the day. So we're doing the last session of the day. And in Salt Lake, in the past, before President Nelson tore it all up, you moved from room to room. So you moved through 4 rooms. And so we were upstairs in the world room, and Satan makes several appearances there. And the last appearance he makes, if you remember, he comes in and he looks, if it's the film, he looks right in the camera. And I was able to quote it this afternoon, but I might not. So we got to the point where Satan was to make his last appearance, where he says, "I have a word to say concerning these people." And I won't quote anymore in case it should offend some people, but you know what he says. And so we sat there, and Satan didn't come in. And we sat, and we sat. And Satan wasn't coming to say his last lines. And nobody was moving. Nobody was making, yes, like temple workers were trying to figure out what was going on. We probably sat there for 15 minutes. And then suddenly Satan came in, said his lines, and left. And we moved on to the terrestrial room and eventually the celestial room. When, I can't remember exactly where it happened, if it was in the celestial room, but someone found out what had happened. Satan, it was his last session of the day, Satan forgot that he had to come back, that he wasn't done. So they were running around the temple trying to find him, found him before he made it to the parking lot, told him he needed to come back, obviously. So the thing is, as Mormons, there's got to be a purpose for this. So let's see, what did I say this morning? Of course, there had to be a lesson to be learned about this. And I'm sure I participated in that. Why did this happen? You know, it was unusual too, because it was with our whole ward, you know, so we all knew each other. I mean, obviously there were other people, but, you know, we were there as friends. And, you know, someone said, well, it just showed us that Satan is a necessary part of the plan. We could not progress without Satan. We were not going to move out of that room. I don't know if they were, you know, if they were going to make us wait until the next morning when Satan was going to show up, but we weren't going anywhere, and we weren't told anything either. So anyway, that's probably my.
So Peter banished Satan all the way to the parking lot.
Apparently.
Satan.
And I have to slip in one other one quickly because of the previous caller that said something about, I don't remember her great aunt's new name. We did a session for my husband's parents' 50th anniversary, and yes, I'm the one who suggested we do a big family session to celebrate a 50th anniversary, and we are celebrating our 50th this year. And I can't imagine doing a temple session, but anyway, it was in the Salt Lake Temple, and it was super crowded, because it was the last day before the Christmas holidays. So you had all the weddings, new brides, and all of that. They had chairs in the aisles. And I sat down. I was on the very last row, sitting between a couple of stewards' aunts. And suddenly I went, I don't remember the new name, which often happened to me. I don't remember the new name. And one of Stewart's aunts leaned over and whispered in my ear, a female dog.
Those are the words she said? So this is like supposed to be a hint?
Book of Mormon. There's not very many women in there.
So the new name was Fluffy?
Taffy?
What's a female dog?
That sounds like a Seinfeld episode.
Mulva?
Well, I'm thinking the B word, but that's not in the Book of Mormon.
No. Yes. Yeah.
Your new name was bitch? Okay, I thought I had some weird temple stories to share. I can't top that. Can't top it.
Worst temple name ever.
Abish.
Oh,
Bish.
Oh my God.
Just like you, it did not help.
Female dog, and the answer is a bish.
Yeah.
What is the second token of the Melchizedek priesthood? Does it have a name? I will give it to you through the veil, bitch.
Well, it was supposed to help me, but it didn't.
What did you think? What did you think when you realized what it really was, and then you figured out what she was trying to hint to you?
It didn't. I was just so stressed at not remembering that it didn't help me. But anyway, and it took me years to realize you did not have, you know, when they say, if any of you have forgotten the new name, please stand. You don't have to do that. But it took me years to realize that, because at the veil, they're going to tell you, and nobody knows it. You're not thinking the new name.
And how's anybody going to know if you don't think it in your head? Of course, you do have to.
Nobody knows. But,
you do have to stand and deliver at the end.
I stood up and raise your hand because you don't remember the new name. But anyway, so those are my probably best.
It's like temple password.
35 years.
Password is a bish. And you're like, female dog. Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Nimrod, right? Better than Nimrod. The guy.
Yeah, I hope that's not really a name for guys.
It is.
Is it? Because I skated then.
It may have.
No, it really is. It is a name. It used to be a revered name of an intellectual, but it has since, ever since, I think it's Elmer Fudd that turned it into a not so complimentary term, Nimrod.
Right. Well, he was a great hunter before the Lord, as we read about in Genesis.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Martine, thank you so much. Thank you so much
for having me. Great show, as always.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, we talked to a number of people. I don't mean to disregard the audience, but I know that Bill's next on the list of the people who are in studio right here. And then we're going to get to Rebecca. If there's any time, I'll say something. But Bill, we went Maven, now it's Bill. Bill, tell us your story, please.
Yeah, this isn't the one. Well, I told you part of this today in the phone call, but I, again, convert, 17 years old. I joined the church. I don't have a clue really what the heck I joined in terms of Sunday Mormonism versus this temple experience, which, you know, you get used to Sunday Mormonism, which has at least a little bit of like normal church feel to it. It's weird too, but for the most part, it's like normal Sunday church experience. The temple is something completely other. And they have temple prep class. I am getting ready to go to the temple. I'm 18 years old now. I'm getting ready to turn 19. I'm going to take my dear girlfriend to the Washington, D.C. temple, get endowed, get sealed the next day. So I go to temple prep. It's like 6 weeks long or something. Every Wednesday night I show up, and my father-in-law is the teacher of the temple prep class. And when he's explaining what's going to happen with the washing and anointings, and he doesn't really want to tell me anything, as everybody already knows, temple prep doesn't prepare you for jack squat. There's nothing there. They hint at things, they give you sort of one-offs, and you sort of have no clue what you're about to get into. And just like Chris Murphy there is saying. So I take the class, and my father-in-law explains to me that my clothes are going to sort of not be on me. I'm going to have to sort of get undressed, right? And I have to go into an area where they're going to take oil and water.
Hey, Bill, you're kind of frozen there, my friend.
And that ticks me off. Am I back?
Yeah, oil and water.
Sort of.
I am, in my mind, the picture he painted is that I'm going to go down into some like bath, like I pictured from like the New Testament, where they go into like the pool to get healed. And I picture myself going into this kind of bath thing, and they're going to be touching me. And I am, have a little bit of trepidation. I go to the temple. The washing and anointing is fine. Like, it was 1,000 times better than what I had pictured was going to happen to me. But when I go to the endowment, I'm putting all the clothes on. I'm going through all the rigmarole of tying the string on the right side and taking the slippers off and putting them back on. I get all the outfit on. I sit down. I'm 19 years old, and I'm looking around the room. And I just, there's no other thought in the world, but I am at a baker's convention. That's how I felt. Like I look around, everybody's in these white outfits. The men all have these stupid looking hats that don't sit right on your head. They got a string. Everybody's got a string tied to it. And I just thought, this is the weirdest thing in the world. I just joined this church a year and a half ago. And what did I get myself into? This is the weirdest thing ever. This is nothing like the Sunday experience. And I tried to stay away from going to the temple to do endowments for the rest of my time in the church. I would go happily to do baptism for the dead with the youth. I'd happily go do a washing and anointing if I went with a ward to a temple outing excursion. But I tried as much as I could to stay away from endowments. It just seemed like the goofiest thing there was. Anyway, there's my story.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us. I'm still laughing about it, bitch. I'm going to be laughing about that all night long, I think.
That's a good one.
But it really is. But thank you for that story. I know we have funny stories. We have serious stories. I know Rebecca has got a very serious story. Before we get to hers, do we have any more people on the line, Bill?
We do. Let me grab the next one. It is going to be a Siobhan.
Siobhan.
I think that's the name. Siobhan, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
You're on Mormonism Live.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So my temple story is more of a funny one. It was upsetting at the time, but it's funny now. I had always wanted to wear my mother's wedding dress. And so we had it cleaned. We had it whitened as much as we could. And, you know, my dad had worked in the temple, so he was looking at it. He's like, it should be fine. There should be no problem with this, because you know how they want the dresses to be like pure white. So we get there, and they're trying to tell me that my dress is not white enough. And I wish I could show you guys a comparison, but I can't because I don't have the dress. But it was almost pure white, just slightly off white. And I had to have the temple matron come in and look at it. And they weren't sure until I said, okay, well, if I don't get to wear this dress, I'm leaving. I'll go get married at the courthouse. And then suddenly they're like, oh, no, it's fine. Okay, it's an heirloom. Oh, we see. Okay, it was your mother's dress. And then they let me get married. But almost didn't get married in the temple because my dress was not white enough.
Wow.
So
is it Siobhan, by the way? Is the name Siobhan? Siobhan, I'm taking it that's because it was an older dress. It belonged to your mother, and so it had yellowed a bit with age. Is that what it was?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, okay. And it was white when she got it, so it was just natural yellowing of the dress.
Mm-hmm. But it's not a legalistic.
They took offense at that. No, not at all. And I do recall saying to them too, I was like, I don't think Jesus would really care if it's just slightly off-white. I think he would just be happy that I'm here getting married in the temple. But
you would think
not legalistic at all.
Wasn't the original like temple clothes like bleached wool or something? I mean, I have to believe the temple clothes of the 1850s didn't start off very white to begin with themselves.
Hey, look what Richard is saying. Is it Peckjack? Forgive me, I don't know, but look, Peckjak. He says, I can confirm I was a wedding photographer at the San Diego Temple for many years, and I had several brides come out in tears because they weren't allowed to wear the dress of their choice.
Wow.
It's definitely matron roulette.
I was really upset.
Sorry, I had a family member who wore a dress that had been previously worn by 2 other brides, and she was not allowed to wear it. It's matron roulette. And who knows if they can even see, right?
Unfortunately. It's this weird thing where, as a girl, I think especially, you think your whole growing up about your wedding day. And then Mormonism comes in and sabotages it anyway. You're in this outfit that doesn't fit right. You're kneeling at an altar and a bunch of people with, aprons on, sitting around in a room and veils on their faces. And you're doing these special handshakes before you get yourself sealed for all time and eternity. And then this extra added measure of like, hey, we're going to take this day you've been thinking about all your life. You've been dreaming about what it would be. It's already not what you planned. And now we're going to just sabotage it even more.
And you also can't dream about it because you can't know what the temple is like, especially somebody of my era. You can't know a single thing. So you can't dream about that day. You think you'll be in some kind of white dress, but there's not an aisle. There aren't bridesmaids. It's not like what you see in a Disney film or on TV. You don't know what it is. And you're just told it's going to be the most amazing day of your life, but it's a secret. So that's what I love about now, that we can be married civilly, that you can dream that. Your father can walk you down the aisle. You can have a bridesmaid. You can do all the things, if you want, that you can dream about. So, but yeah, it was very secret. And it was kind of a blur, nebulous, very nebulous in my experience.
Just to jump on with what Rebecca's saying, the dress was like the only thing that you could know.
Yeah.
Did I get cut off there? I don't know if it came through or not. The dress is literally the only piece that you could possibly know and try. And it's not just colors. That's less common. I've heard of a ton of brides who the neckline wasn't enough, or like the sleeve wasn't long enough. Even brides that tried to be prepared and get that nipped ahead of time by altering their dresses to lengthen sleeves, or to have a cardigan or a coat, or to adjust necklines, specifically so they could wear their dress in the temple and then still not be able to. And not even just that, but I had one friend who did have a modest dress and it was completely fine, but all the junk that you put on top of it, because you put all of the other endowment ceremony pieces over top of it. So you do have the nice wedding picture outside, but inside for the actual ceremony, you've got the awful veil and the baker's hat for the men. You've got this, sash. You've got the green apron. You've got this green apron covering. So just your whole dress is covered up anyway. So I had a friend that was a sad moment.
And I didn't know that going in either.
Yeah, they do not tell you that. Yeah,
Yeah.
you think you'll be wearing your wedding dress, but you're not. You're completely covered. Yeah, it's not good.
We were dirt poor.
Not
I mean,
look.
my pants weren't hemmed right. I had the slippers on, not the shoes. You know, it just makes for an experience that just feels like something was missing. You know, I was a convert, so my mom couldn't go and my dad couldn't go, and I ended up with just my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, my brother-in-law, and his wife, who he's since divorced. And it's just this weird thing that Mormonism sort of sabotages a really cool moment in your life and sort of makes you, at least for those of us who leave, deeply regret having experienced our marriage there.
It sounds like that last caller, Siobhan, ran into Abish in the temple. By the way, Maven was pointing out, and I think properly so, that we should mention that Abish, or Abish is how I usually say it, is one of the few proper names we find in the Book of Mormon for a woman. There's like 5 of them all totaled, and that's one of them. Yeah. So that's why it is a female name for a new name in the temple.
I think it's only 3.
Yeah.
We've got a person down below here.
I think there's literally only 3 named women in the whole Book of Mormon.
Okay, but you got to also throw in Mary.
Yeah, please.
Oh, anyway, we won't go into that. I think there may be 3 characters in the Book of Mormon who are females who are named. I think that's true. And I think I know what they are. I think it's Sarai, I think it's Abish, and I think it's Isabel. The harlot.
I have a play button on my screen. Do you guys see that?
Not to be confused with Jezebel by any means.
I don't see a play button. Are we going to play a video?
Do you have what on your screen, Bill?
I have a play button.
I don't see
I'm going to push it. I don't know what the hell's going to happen. This could be bad.
Okay.
Don't do it.
Don't push it.
Okay, I pushed it. It just disappeared. That's cool. All right. Anyway.
That's a good thing. So why don't you push a button and see if you can get Connie on the show?
Look at that.
There's Connie.
Hey. How are you?
I'm doing great. Great. How are you guys doing?
Doing great. Good. You have a story about the temple to share with us?
Oh, I do. So I served a mission in Brazil, and we would make the trek every month to go to the São Paulo temple every month. So I was always in the outer darkness edges of the mission, and it would take 4 hours bus ride to get there. We would have to leave at like 3 or 4 in the morning and take multitude of buses and subways to get there every month. And one time we went, and everybody, it is a struggle to stay awake anyway during the endowment, but as a missionary, and as you have already woken up at 3 a.m. and traveled for hours and hours to get there, it was nearly impossible to stay awake. And so we would always go through the session, and then next door there was a little restaurant that all the missionaries would meet at. And I remember one day we were at the restaurant, and there was an elder next to us, and we said, "Elder, where's your companion?" And he looked around, and like, I think he's with so-and-so. And we saw so-and-so and said, "Elder, are you with so-and-so?" And no. So anyway, this elder was missing, and we looked everywhere for him. We had no idea where he went. So we finally went back to the temple, and apparently he was asleep in the celestial room for like 2 hours.
The companion just left without him.
And he said that was probably the best sleep he's ever had, was sleeping in the celestial room for like 2 hours while we were lunching. So
well, there's no sleep like a sleep in the celestial room. That's the best kind of sleep there is.
Absolutely. As long as you don't drool or snore, you're good.
That is funny. Well, the endowment movie is not that exciting. I think the nicest thing I can say about it is that it's no Mission Impossible.
I can't imagine. Now that it doesn't even move, I don't even know how people can even, this is slideshow. It's like going back to pre-film, when we
going back to my mission.
Slides. This little beep. Someone at the projector. Yeah. So yeah. But thank you for letting me share. Thanks for letting me share the stories, and thanks for all you guys do. Appreciate
Absolutely.
You.
Thanks for coming on the show, Connie.
Absolutely. Have a good one. Thanks.
Okay. Bye-bye. And now I'm huge. Okay. Now, can we go to Rebecca now for her story?
Mm-hmm.
Rebecca's got a great story. I don't want to build it up too much, but it's a fantastic story. She shared it with me last night, and I was gobsmacked.
I'm not going to share that one though. I actually have 7 temple stories, which is why I thought this would be a great topic. And I think it's interesting that neither of you were a child raised LDS. You were converts later. So you did not have, which perhaps the rest of us had, the experience of kind of living with the idea of the temple from birth. Like I was dressed garment ready from babyhood. That's the kind of family I grew up in, that, you know, the clothes you wore prepared you to wear garments. So the temple was a huge part of my growing up, but it was very, very secret. It was something I was always really, really nervous about because it was so secret, especially back in that era. They didn't have a little more transparency that they have now. So I had extreme temple anxiety even before I went to the temple. It was something I was really worried about my whole life. And I didn't even go to the temple until I was 25 years old. Isn't that terrible? I know. I was engaged to be married. And I've only been, let me think, overall 6 times. And something extraordinarily bizarre has happened every single time. I finally just had to opt out. I'm out, tap out. So I'll say, I won't tell you about the endowment. No, that was something else. The second time I went through, okay, so I went through 2 weeks before I was married. And my fiance said, well, we need to go again. We need to keep going now that you're endowed. I'm like, okay, great. And so the second time I go through, they had told me the first time, if I have trouble remembering anything that has to be said, I can simply ask for help. I can turn to a kindly matron and I can ask for help during any part of it, because I had extreme performance anxiety in the temple, like more than anyone else. I know some people just breeze through. I had been nervous about it my whole life and I had extraordinary anxiety over it. So the second time I go through, I get up to the very end and I'm trying to be respectful, you know, and, you know, there's a part where you have to recite something that is lengthy. So I, of course, just kind of freaked out because it's my first time through after the endowment. And of course, I haven't memorized it yet. So I turn to the woman next to me and I say, I don't remember. I'm new. It's my second time. And she goes, what? In her regular tone of voice. Sorry, RFM, did I blast you out there? But she said it in a regular tone of voice. I was using a temple voice and she used her regular voice. And I said, I'm new. I don't remember. She goes, this woman came in here without a name. She's not taking a name with her. And I said, I got a name. Somebody handed me a piece of, I have it, you know, and I'm like struggling in my robe. I'm trying to find it. She goes, come here. Did you guys know there are people that come here when someone's done something wrong in the endowment? Yeah, there are. So they came over to me. They stopped everything. And I'm just standing there going, and I will preface that with this, my fiance had already gone through the veil. He was waiting for me in the celestial room, right? So I'm standing there trapped. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. They're telling me I don't have a new name. I'm trying to find it in my pocket. 2 other people have come over to me and I said, what's this? How did you get in here? I'm like, well, I'm here. I came through the normal door. No, I'm not kidding. And wow. In hindsight, as a grown-up person, I realized that maybe the matron and the gentleman were just older and they didn't understand what was happening, you know, but extraordinarily traumatic. So finally I show him my name. I go, no, I have a name. I just didn't freaking know what to say. I need help with the words. This is my second time, right? And I'm in the most peaceful place on earth, right? And so I go through the veil after finally they understand what's happening. They help me through and they rip me through and I'm in there and my fiance is like, oh, what was it? And I'm like, you get me that out of here. And I just as fast as I could to the other room. So that's one of them. Okay. So he goes, okay, you fell off the horse. You got to get back on. You've got to go back to the temple. And I'm like, I don't think I ever want to go back. He goes, no. We're getting married in a week. We've got to go back again because you had a bad experience. Only one. What could go wrong? Right? We'll go back again. I'm like, okay, fine. So we go back a second time, a couple days later. And again, the first time took my endowments out. I didn't really know anything about what it looked like inside of the temple. It was back in the day where there weren't pictures online or anything like that. It was years ago in the early 90s. And so my fiance said, look, let's just veer off the beaten path on our way to wherever we were going to go. And I'll show you what a sealing room looks like. Because this is what I'm talking about. As a little girl growing up, you don't even know, back in my era anyway, what the room looked like that you were going to get married in. You really had no idea. So he goes, let's just peek in here and I'll show you what a sealing room looks like. Because this is where we're going to go in a week or so. And I said, okay. So we go off the path and he opens the door of a sealing room. And suddenly this temple matron throws herself in front of the door and spreads her arms out to block it like that. She goes, I know who you are and I know what you're doing. And again, this is only my third time. I'm like, what is happening?
I'm not new name Noah. I'm not here to record it.
Yeah, I know. There was no such thing as new name Noah yet. This is prior to any of that. This is 1991. Okay. This is the olden days. She goes, you guys are polygamists. You guys are trying to break in here and you guys are trying to have a marriage ceremony in the temple. I'm not going to let it happen. And she blocks the entire doorway. And my fiance is like, no, ma'am. Sister, we're sorry. My fiance has never seen the ceiling room. And I just wanted to show her again. She goes, no way. I know who you are. You guys are polygamists. She's like, there's the door. And I'm just, once again, get me the F out of here. So seriously, those are two of my more extreme ones. And then I won't even go into what happened when I got married. But the reason I thought of this topic is because, it's traumatic at the time. Then you sort of tell it in a funny way later. Mm-hmm. But the buildup of these experiences, there's a reason that people have a hard time going back. It's just, you're not prepared for it, is kind of what I feel. So I was really curious to hear other people's experiences. And I love all the ones that have been shared so far. I love it.
Yeah. One wonders why they don't have a lock on the door.
Yeah, one would wonder. But apparently this was a thing. And this was in the Provo Temple. And it was a real thing that polygamists, because they believe, and I'm guessing it might have been AUB because they did believe in the power of the temple. And so they would go there and they would do their ceremonies to be married. So, but I never knew anything about it at the day. And it was very shocking to be called a polygamist.
Wow. A lot of people, are with you that these experiences, when they happen, they're awful. But then, years and years later, when you're talking about it, it's funny, right?
Yeah.
Right. It's kind of like my first marriage.
Yeah.
We all have experience like that.
Yeah. I wanted to
laugh at the trauma.
In.
Oh, Maven, yes.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to jump in and maybe explain some things and provide some context to anyone of our audience who are never Mormons or who were Mormons but never went to the temple. And I highlighted this comment. This is, I don't understand. Polygamy is still legal in the temple. And it is technically for a man if his wife has previously died and he's getting sealed to another woman, that's fine. But all sealings are always scheduled. So the fact that they were going into the sealing room when there wasn't a scheduled wedding, I think that's what caught the radar of the matron. And this is a story I've heard from other people as well. And I feel I've been shown, I didn't have this happen to me, but I had someone kind of take me off to the side and be like, look, here's a sealing room, open the door and look. Because there's one of the things that a lot of people find special about the sealing room is that there are mirrors on both sides of the wall. So you've got this double reflection going, and it's supposed to be a representation of, just of eternity, really, like past generations and also future generations and you there in the middle. So that's why there's really not a lot to see in there except for that and the altar. But so I just feel like the desire for someone to show a new person a sealing room seems to be really common. But yes, unscheduled, sneaky people trying to get polygamous marriages outside of the official channels, that is something that I have heard is a problem in certain areas where there are more offshoots. And a lot of times they are very good at pretending to be active in the church. Mm-hmm. Another bit of context I wanted to add for people who don't know is just, I want to say like the societal pressure that's really heavy on you, and also how quiet it is. So yes, there's talking at certain points, but it's usually talking at you. So it's almost like the most intense library that you've ever been in, where it just seems like any interruption at all, any whisper if it's too loud or anything. And again, because there's this whole process, and if anything goes wrong, like they will stop it and wait for you. There's this social anxiety of just not wanting to be the person that an entire room full of people are looking at you, waiting for you, or wondering what is going on with you. Why are you talking? Why are you laughing? And especially with the clothing, I remember with all of the things you have to put on, and at first you used to like put it on and then take it off and like switch one robe to one side and the other, and even like to the taking off of your slippers, your little shoes, and putting them back on, and I always felt this urgent rush, because once everyone was done, they would always sit back down, and you just never wanted to be the last person tying your little sash or putting your shoes back on, standing up, because again, there's just another visual of like everyone's sitting, everyone else is done changing the robes around and stuff, and they're waiting for it to go on, but now they're waiting for this mofo over here who's shuffling around or something. And then once that person, the last person, sits down, then things can go on. So I just, even if something doesn't happen, like what happened with Rebecca, where there was some kind of an issue, just in the normal process of it, I was always at the changing of the ceremonial clothing, I always was stressed that if, and I had to tie, like the apron you tie behind your back. So, and some people have like magnets and clips, and I ended up switching over to a clip because that was something that held me up a lot. I just remember like, I can't see behind my back as I'm tying this. And so if you think you got it, but then you don't, and it falls down, now you got to do it again. And it's just like,
and who decided to make those ties out of satin, for crying out loud?
Yeah, they're really slippery, right?
So slippery.
That mofo.
Yeah, by the way, I learned from watching other people. And what you do is you tie the thing in front of you, and then you
flip it
around.
Yeah,
but
I mean, as a girl, you do learn to tie a bow behind your back, so that just seemed more natural at first. But yeah, that would be the way to do it. And so,
I
just wanted to point out the mofo, the last person standing that everybody is waiting for, like that happens every time.
I was going to say to Maven's point on that, if I could speak really quickly. So my first time, the endowment, this is what happened to me also. The very first time I went through, I took a college roommate with me who was on a crazy liquid diet. And right in the middle of the movie, she had to go to the bathroom. So she got up and she left. Does anybody know what happens when somebody gets up and leaves the endowment room?
I think
I didn't
tell you.
Everything
started over from the beginning.
The screen goes up. The matrons and the people go to the front. At least this is when I did, and fold their arms in front, and they just stare at everybody. They stare at me because I'm sitting there by my roommate, and they're looking at me like, where did she go? And I'm like, I'm brand new. I have no idea what's happening here. And she had no idea either. She was in the temple bathroom combing her hair, teasing her hair. It was the 90s. She was fixing everything. She came waltzing back in probably 10 minutes and sat back down, and they calmly put the screen back down. They moved aside, and we continued. And later somebody said, the belief is that the person who you are going through for has to have you as a physical body experience the whole thing, or it doesn't take, or whatever it is. But again, like Maven said, that's so real. You're afraid that you will do something that will hold everything up. Well, my first time there, the person I brought held everything up for 10 minutes, and it was extraordinarily embarrassing.
Yeah, it's just that attention in a social situation where it's not okay that can just be really like viscerally intensely painful, almost on an evolutionary level. I think it goes straight to like that kind of a fear. But the bathroom thing reminded me of a comment that was up a while back, and she did say it was okay to share this. So this is Alyssa. She says, I learned an important lesson of not going to the temple during an IBS flare-up. I will not share details. And I think that's enough details, Alyssa, but I thought that was funny, and I kept that aside. So, yeah.
You mentioned the mofo. It was me, because I went to the endowment so little that when I went, my wife insisted that we be the witness couple. So I have to sit at the front, and I dress slower than 93-year-old men. And these men are behind me, and they're impatient with me. So I was just so annoyed that, like, how the hell am I a functioning adult who dresses slower than every person in this room? And it frustrated the hell out of me. So I am the mofo that you talked about.
Well, that was difficult with the satin. I'm sorry, the satin ties. And also you got to do this. You got to figure out how to use one hand to tie a knot in your little string.
And then you got to tie it again on the other side.
I mean, you got to be freaking Houdini. It's just amazing.
I was gonna say, this reminded me of this was a story that was in, I think, the Reddit, and it was that the temple ceremony got stopped because a man couldn't find like his other temple sock, which is weird because you don't take the socks off, or maybe at one point you did or something.
Probably Sandy Berger.
there was just a missing sock. So the person telling this story was saying, like, we've literally got like men on the floor, on the ground, like looking around, opening, because the chairs are like movie theater chairs too. That's another thing. They kind of pop up, so you have to push them down to sit on them. So people are looking, did he put it like on the back of the chair? Did it fall behind? Did it fall in between? Men like on their hands and knees trying to find where this sock disappeared to. And it turns out, I guess he had put both socks on the same leg. But I think before they figured that out, I think they literally had someone like go to the the wardrobe area and get another pair of socks so that he would have this other sock. But anyway, it just reminded me of like reading that story somewhere, and I just remember feeling like it was a really funny story.
Because you're not supposed to take your socks off. I feel like you're in the same session with Bill.
No.
That was my problem.
They did say it was an older gentleman, so yeah.
Not me.
I'm curious if anyone, and I see this question about the temple on social media a lot, has ever seen anyone leave. They give you the option to leave, or someone just get up and leave, or be so overwhelmed or having a full-blown panic attack that they leave right in the middle. I haven't seen too many answers to the affirmative for that someone actually just opts out.
I never have.
I've never seen it.
There's a lot of social pressure not to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So can we bring Summer on, since she is in the studio, and now
I did want to pull up
5 of us.
There was a comment that talked about it. So since Rebecca asked, I'll address it real quick. But she says she had a friend in Manta who got baptized and decided to get endowed. At some point, she realized she was in a cult. The matron thought she was having a spiritual experience. She ended up running out. Not funny, I guess. But like we said, a lot of these stories are really kind of funny after the fact in kind of a dark way because of the trauma of it. Anyway, the comment continues. I've also heard of someone getting married in the temple, and when she saw her husband, she burst out in laughter at the sight of him for the first time in all of the temple garb.
Wow.
Hey.
Oh my gosh. So Summer, first thing, I gotta make sure you understand that yes, everyone was kung fu fighting.
No, surely not everyone was kung fu fighting. Was. Surely not everyone was.
Everybody.
And don't call me Shirley. I actually forgot I was wearing this shirt. But yeah, so I've been here and I've been waiting, and my kids have not come in at all. So just so everybody's aware, when I'm doing something, that is when they come in. So you might hear a little pitter patter in the background. But I wanted to share a story, temple story, but it's my husband's again. My husband and I were temple workers. We are actually called to be temple workers our first year of marriage. We were literally newlyweds. I think we were 3 months married, and we were called to be temple workers. And so we were working at the Jordan River Temple, and my husband is pretty proficient in Spanish. So he, let them know that, and we're going to temple, and he says to me, I'm not going to be able to do this endowment session with you because I've been asked to do another language, a Spanish endowment session. Because I guess somebody called in sick or something. So he was asked to go over and do the Spanish version. So I'm looking at our little timesheet. I know when the Spanish endowment session gets out. I'm waiting for him. He is nowhere to be found. Everybody is clearing, and I'm not seeing him. He's not in the slush room. I don't know where my husband is. Come to find out, 45 minutes later, I find him. He was actually asked to do the German session. So he's prepared to go in to do the Spanish translation at the Veil, and they hand him the German translation, and he had to read that at the Veil because I guess they thought since he knew Spanish, he could kind of swing German. So that is my story. It was. I thought it was funny. RFM isn't laughing right now, but I don't care. It was hilarious.
You should just go with the Adamic language. Just use the same Adamic language for everything. None of the Spanish, German.
I think your husband doesn't speak German.
No, he does. He speaks English very well, and he's proficient in Spanish. So when they asked him, "Can you do this other session?" He's like, "Sure." And then when he got to the Veil, they had it in German, and he had to read it in German. And so that's why I couldn't find him for 45 minutes. It was it was fantastic. So sometimes I still tease him. You know, I'll throw some German words at him here and there.
Yes.
He doesn't like it.
Otto? Nein, sie ist am Samstag geschlossen.
Go on.
So yeah.
Well, that's very funny. I mean, if ever a guy needed the gift of tongues.
Yeah, and I'm not sure he got it that day, but everyone made it through the veil, which is what's important, right? But I did want to say, Bill, I know that you're complaining about your temple class and how you didn't learn anything. But as I said last week, my temple class, I was told I shouldn't get endowed. So at least you weren't told by the instructors, you know what, you should probably wait till you get married. You know, at least they gave you some instruction. Because as a female, they're like, are you going on a mission? No. Are you getting married? Then you should just wait.
For the record, I was LDS for about 20 years and I didn't learn anything. It wasn't just the temple, just so we're clear.
I just wanted to
At least nothing useful. Really... I learned like essentially the equivalent. Yeah, the equivalent of speaking Klingon or Star Wars, you know.
Don't knock speaking Klingon.
You're wrong audience.
I'm trying to picture your husband. Yisel Valsen House. Yeah, it would be. What is wanted? Does it have a name?
It's so long. German has such long words.
I mean, and I've never seen him look so stressed and anxious because, you know, he's thinking he's just jacking up everybody on the other side and they're pissed off at him over there on the other side of the veil. But, you know, I said, honey, you tried, you know, you tried your best. But yeah, so that was the first and last time he ever said he would do a help with translation. Whenever they asked him again, he's like, I think I'm just going to stick over here in the English side.
Yeah, you don't want to
get my wife.
You don't want to get a room full of Germans mad at you.
So that is my story. And this is so enjoyable, guys. This is fun. So fun.
Thank you. Where are you broadcasting from? It looks like you're on the lower bunk of a bunk bed.
I'm hiding. I am hiding from my children. I can't tell anybody where I am right now because this is.
Are you playing hide and seek?
Nobody knows. Playing hide and seek. I told them but I'm supposed to be finding them right now. So.
Oh yeah, that's how I do it with the kids too. The
that's
kids
a pro-parenting tip.
Hide and seek. You go hide, and I won't.
We've got new parents.
Yeah. I'm just waiting for them to come in and say, "Mom, you didn't find me."
Well, you hid so well. You were so good. I was looking everywhere.
Yeah, you were so good. I was just under your bed. Oh man, I didn't look there. So yeah, but yeah, you guys have a great night, and I'm going to be listening to the rest of the stories.
Okay, great. Thanks for joining us, Summer.
No problem. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
I was just gonna say that it's interesting. Again, this is another thing that's specifically for women. Men, they want to get through the temple. At least I think so. That's my understanding. They want men to be temple endowed because there's a lot of callings and priesthood responsibilities with that. Is that right? I just
certainly a mission at a minimum.
Yeah, and most men would have done that. So I don't know if you didn't serve a mission as a man, were you treated the same and you weren't getting married? Were men treated the same as women, or was this a one-sided thing with just women only, where they typically would not encourage you to get endowed if you weren't immediately going on a mission or immediately getting married? And I suspect that the reason is because the endowment makes so little sense and can be so traumatic. I feel like they rely on that pressure of the upcoming wedding or the upcoming mission, the social pressure behind that, to not, I guess, to prevent you from being the one that's running away in the temple when they give you the chance, you know, to say that you can leave if you want at the very beginning. Does anybody know? All right, I'll be looking for the chat. I don't know if they do that to men too, if they were not getting married and had not served a mission but still wanted to get endowed. Yeah. So
yeah, and I don't know.
I'm not seeing anybody immediately, and you guys don't know.
It was much more of a female issue.
Yeah, that was my situation because I was almost 26 when I got married, and I did not want to serve a mission. And I did not want to get endowed, and nobody ever approached me about it. So I think it was just sort of, we'll just wait until she finally gets married. Although I have heard more currently that I know of women that
yeah,
didn't serve
it's
a mission.
possible.
Maybe they're 20. Yeah,
and it'll happen.
But in my
But
day,
a lot of times
yeah,
you had to really push it, and it was
you
kind
had
of
to
also
push it.
bishop roulette
Yep.
sometimes. Yeah,
Bishop
for them
roulette,
to kind of
absolutely.
get permission to go outside of the
Yep.
normal way. But
There-
I have heard it's more common now because it's the women are aging up and the marriage isn't there. So
Exactly.
if you can't get us sucked in by the marriage, then at some point you got to let us go through the temple. So
The instruction was actually there that we were not to have sisters go through who were not getting married, single sisters. And then sometime around the year 2000, the church changed its policy, and it then, to some degree, encouraged women that if they got to the point where they were, 23, 24 years old, the church then encouraged them to go to the temple and get their endowment, even if they were single. So there is that change, and it was more formal than just like nobody pushed. It was really instruction behind the scenes not to send you.
Do we have anybody else on the line, Bill?
We do. We have phone calls. So let me grab the next one. I believe we have a Melissa. Melissa, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Go ahead. You've been waiting a little while.
Yes, I just wanted to share a quick experience I had at the Jordan River Temple. I think it was maybe 2008, 2009, and we were in, I was sitting down, but they were doing the prayer for the prayer circle, and the guy giving the prayer, he was talking about something about the second coming being nigh. And then he says, someone in this company has been watching pornography and shouldn't be in this temple and needs to go home and repent. And I had the veil on.
Did everyone walk out?
Everybody leaves the room.
I know, seriously. I had the veil on, and I brought it up, and everyone's just looking around at everyone, trying to think, who is this? And of course, I really believed it at the time. This guy must have discernment to know that someone in this room is watching pornography.
Wow. I didn't know the amazing Kreskin was a Mormon.
It's a pretty safe bet.
I've heard that story before. And I
when you
think this is
teach
an urban
people that
legend.
they have discernment, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get people who think they have discernment and they say things.
Yeah. Is
And
this an
not
endowment
just
or a
that,
Las Vegas act? Go ahead, Maven. I'm sorry.
Sorry, yeah, I don't know. I think my first bits are getting cut off, but this is a story that I do know has been told. I think it's an urban legend, and it might even be one that's in, not canonized as in scripture, but in talks or in LDS books somewhere. I don't know the source, but I know I've heard it before, and so I definitely think, especially if you have been told you have discernment and you've heard a story like that, and when you have a position, it makes sense that you might get that inkling, supposedly. So
And it's unfalsifiable.
to have a similar, yeah,
exactly
and almost certainly going to be true.
Has anyone heard, I've also a question that's often asked on social media is stories of people getting injured or getting sick in the temple. I have a family member, and maybe that's not humorous, but it's interesting when it happens in that setting. I have a family member who fell forward and broke her jaw in the endowment room on the chair. Does anyone have any stories or anything about somebody getting hurt or injured?
Like a real knee slapper.
Well, it's interesting because when they have to bring in, like an ambulance or EMTs, that presents its own set of problems if you have to bring that element into the temple.
Nothing more than elderly halitosis.
There it is.
I'm pulling up again. I'm holding on to these comments, and then as they become relevant. So this was one of our commenters in the live chat wondering if anyone has ever died while in the temple, and then
that's your cue, Rebecca.
Quick trip to the other side. Anthony
right.
Campbell answered. He was in the Provo temple and someone died. I know there was a Reddit story. If I can find it, I'll maybe try to pull it up. But there was someone that explained, who was a temple worker, that explained how that and how injuries and EMS were let in, how they handle that in the temple. Because, again, when you need emergency services, but then also you're supposed to have a temple recommend,
Yep.
they have a protocol for that. So I'll try to find that.
I think the surprising thing is more people don't die in the temple. But Rebecca, don't you have a story about seeing someone die in front of you in the temple?
I don't have, the only story I had was my relative that hit their jaw. I have another relative that slipped and got a concussion and never recovered and died. Also, when I was in college, an elderly man drove his car into the lobby of the Provo Temple and actually killed someone there for youth baptism. But these stories are not entertaining, so I'm not going to tell them.
You just did.
Oh.
Well, did the guy in the car have his recommend?
I don't know, but the Provo Temple has one of those roundabouts, and he was about 96 years old. It was really unfortunate in the 80s, late 80s.
And he went in through the front door?
Yeah, he just drove in through it was sad.
Were you there?
I wasn't there, no, but it was in the Daily Universe. I was in college at the time. No, I was nowhere near the temple in college. Remember, I have extreme temple anxiety. I would only go when completely forced in my mid-20s.
Wow. So anybody else on the line, Bill?
Yes, I just want to show though really quick. Somebody asked if anyone knows what the church does if a member has a disability and can't participate, like unable to shake hands. The temple worker, as far as I know, the temple worker still, like if you're missing an arm, and they will do the other arm, I think. But if you don't have either arm, they will do it to the air as if you have an arm or as if you have a hand. They will still go through the motions of showing the sign to the person, even though they don't have a hand to receive the sign, if that makes any sense. Because they still have to give the signs and tokens. So anyway, there's that. All right. So I think we have, I don't know the name
next comment
on this one.
This was someone that came up. They said they're legally blind, so you can imagine the fun I have at the temple. They are not ADA compliant. Let's just say that. So, and I'm sure others have stories.
Well, all I can say is you're not missing a lot.
Caller, what's the name?
Marzipan.
Marzipan, you are on the show live on Mormonism Live.
Finally, sweet.
Go ahead.
That's the one. These stories have been so awesome. Thanks everybody for sharing. I have one that is I thought would be probably no one else calling in with this story. I went to the temple when I was 7 because my mom was not a member of the church when my parents got married. And so they had my brother, they had me, they had 2 more boys, had another one on the way, and they were like, we've got to get married in the temple so that all these children will be in the covenant. But if you're born and your parents are not already married in the temple, then you're basically illegitimate in the eyes of the church. And so my 2 younger brothers and I had to go to the temple to get sealed to our parents. So our parents went, did their endowments, did their whatever else they do. And then we were there for the sealing. And I just didn't know if anybody knows that. What I remember about it is I had little white yarn ties in my hair. My aunt said you have to wear white ones. You can't wear any other color. And there's actually a nursery in the temple, which I was like, this is sweet. There were toys. There was stuff to do. We had Lincoln logs. It was pretty awesome. My aunt was very worried that, because my parents were already at the temple all day, so my aunt took us. And she was very worried that my little brother, who was probably 2, was going to have a diaper incident in the sealing room. Fortunately, he did not. However, he did while we were still in the nursery, and I had to go find some elderly woman and be like, my brother pooped his pants. So they have changing facilities and everything. The other thing I remember about this is everybody was so excited for me before I went, and they were talking. I grew up in the church. My mom had already joined the church by the time I was born, and so everyone was very excited, and they were telling me how
special it was going to be. It's going to be magnificent. It's wonderful. And in the ceiling room, there's these mirrors and it looks like you're going to heaven. And I was like, well, that sounds sweet. When I got in there, I was like, well, these are just like the mirrors at Barber Bob's, where I can see, like, there were mirrors on each wall at the barber shop. I was like, this looks like Barber Bob's, dude. One last thing. My older brother had passed away before all this, so I'm sure that was part of the reason that my parents really, really wanted to get us all sealed. And so my step-grandpa stood in for my brother during the sealing. And I don't remember this. I wasn't there for that conversation. But my mom relates that he asked several times of different workers, how do I get unsealed to my ex-wife? And they were like, oh, you don't have to worry about that. I mean, he had already been sealed to my grandma, but he still wanted to get unsealed from his ex-wife. And they were like, we don't talk about that. We don't do that. So that is a legitimate thing when people say that, and that's why I was being a little bit snarky, but only a little bit, with the comment about polygamy is still legal in the temple, because they were not going to unseal him to his first wife, because what difference does it make? You'll be with both of them in heaven. And he's like, I don't want that. So anyway, I guess he's with her now. I don't know.
Well, let me tell you, from personal experience, there are a few things that a person should be more concerned about.
Maybe.
Thank you, Marzipan.
Marzipan, thanks so much.
Does anybody have any stories of being told that you're wearing the wrong thing to attend the temple or the wrong kind of jewelry? I know recently they don't do that as much, but I have a story of trying to go on a youth baptism temple trip. And this is kind of, up to Seattle. So yeah, it would have been 4 or 5 hours away. So we all go to the church parking lot. We're getting on the bus to the temple, and I get on. And I have some nail polish on. It's light pink. I'm a teenager. And the youth leader says, go home and take that off. I can't go to the temple if I have nail polish on. My mom picks me up at the church. I call her on the church phone, go all the way home, take the nail polish off, back to the church. I've missed the bus. I'm telling you, every interaction I ever had with the temple was just fraught with trauma. So I had to ride with the leaders. This is in the early 80s, in the station wagon, in the seat facing backwards, the seat of shame, because of my, harlot nail polish. So I'm just curious if anybody else have any experience of saying, don't wear those earrings. I know they've relaxed it a lot now, but it used to be very strict.
I haven't had that issue, but all I can say is that Satan is really working overtime to keep you away from the temple, Rebecca.
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
See, this is what Mormons always say. If something happens, it makes it hard for you to get to the temple. You can't get to the temple. Something blows up. You're wearing nail polish. That's Satan.
Right. I had to say, when people leave the church, a lot of times there's different ways that they express themselves that were kind of previously forbidden. So that's why sometimes when people think, when people leave the church, why is it that they all get tattoos and piercings or something, or everyone starts wearing tank tops all the time, and it's not that everyone does all of those things, but I think just what things were something that you would have naturally been interested in, but were held back from doing because it wasn't appropriate as a member. That's who get tattoos or who decide piercings. These are things that they wanted, but were self-expression that wasn't okay. And for me, one of mine that I'm kind of known for now, and I've actually been missing it, so I've been thinking I want to get back into it again, was unnatural colored hair. I loved it when I started to see that you could dye your hair like a bright pink or a bright purple or blue or the really cool mermaid teal color. But and there's not anything technically prohibiting that in the church, that you can't do that, especially it's not a permanent thing. But the first time I ever mentioned I wonder what it would be like to have pink hair, I don't remember who it was to, but it was it was a woman who was Mormon. And she said, well, yeah, but then you couldn't go to the temple with that because it would, it'd be drawing too much attention. And so, again, because I wanted to be a super uber good Mormon girl, I it just basically became a non-starter for me, not something I could ever do, because I never, even if it's just temporary, I never wanted to be in a position where maybe all of a sudden I needed or like really wanted to go to a temple session, but then, you know, wouldn't be able to with my friends, or, you know, for whatever reason, because my hair was an unnatural color and I didn't have time to dye it back or something like that. So it just seemed easier just to never ever do it. So for me, that's kind of partly why and when I came out like with the purple hair, that was something that really felt special and meaning for me to do for whatever reason. Like when I guess came out as Maven and I was seen for the first time, I wanted the colored hair, and it's something that I do enjoy doing and I'm going to do again soon. Anyway, so again, I wasn't kicked out for it, Rebecca, but it was something that I was prevented from doing because I was told that I would get kicked out for it. So
RFM, I had to read this one a couple of times. This is Richard again. I'd love for RFM to wear. So, okay, never mind. I guess he means shirt. But in my head, I was like, yeah, I kind of hope that RFM would go into the temple and take a superhero dump in the temple. What do you think there?
Well, I may have in the past, but it's always been in the bathroom.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, Richard,
well,
that R makes a big
Victoria
difference.
Armstrong is saying, when I went, we were asked to remove jewelry and watches. Mm-hmm. I can see that. You know, when I was going to the temple and at the MTC, so it's the Provo Temple, it's early in the morning. It's blackout. It's so dark. And because you only can go on P day, right? So you want to get out of the way first. So you go over there. But I remember being there and watching this guy who's in this row down here. And at one point, he's not a missionary. He's middle-aged. He's probably a very successful businessman. And at some point, I just look over and he just goes like this. And I remember that to this day because I thought, he's got places to go, things to do. This temple is not, it's like he's there at the temple because he's supposed to be at the temple. Which is like why everybody's at the temple, because they're supposed to be at the temple. Is there anybody who goes there because they really dig the movie?
Oh, I think sometimes. I remember my friends, before I went to the temple, talking about the hot Eve, right? You would hope that you would get the movie that had the hot Eve. Apparently, one was, you know, more attractive than the others. So I don't know if anybody has memories
There was
like
a divided opinion about that among the missionaries back in the late 1970s. There was the blonde Eve or the brunette Eve.
Yeah. That's it. Now it's a film strip, though, or a slideshow. So how would you know? You know, the other crazy things that sealers say, right? That's where you go off script. Everything else is scripted in the temple, right? Until you get to a sealing. And that's where it gets a little crazy. So at my sealing, this is my marriage. So first of all, through the entire thing, they called me Becky, which I've never been called in my entire life. So I actually don't feel like I was married, really, because I don't know who this Becky was. So then this sealer, who I don't know at all, he was just chosen randomly. And this is in LA. He decides to give wise advice, right? That's what happens in the temple when you're married. They give you wise advice to take with you into your marriage life. So he said, Becky, when you see your husband come home from work, because I'm going to be home, right? Not working. I'll see my husband come home. So when you see your husband come home from work and he has his keys from his car and he puts his keys on the credenza, he said, I want you, Becky, to go over and always touch those keys so that you can remember that he has the keys of the priesthood. So that was the advice.
That's profound. I haven't heard that before.
Yeah, no, I don't think I ever enacted it. Okay, but then his advice to my husband was, so Becky, once a month, will be in a bad mood. So yeah, no, I kid you not. I'm not making these things up.
My experience has been that Becky's in a bad mood a lot more than
on her period. Yes, he said on her period during my wedding ceremony. And it was funny because my relatives were all writing. You know how you take notes, like you're taking notes. It's going to be this, and they all were like, we kind of got nothing. We kind of put our notebooks down. So anyway, the advice was that, you know, girls get cranky, try to be understanding, touch the priesthood keys, and watch out for girls that are cranky. So that was my sealing ceremony. I just wonder if anyone else has crazy stuff that any of the sealers said when they go off script, right? That's the only time.
This is the apex of your spiritual journey.
I think it is.
I want to share one. This is from our viewer, Black Priesthood. And so I wanted to just share this one. He says, I used to get ridden with anxiety as the only Black person in the endowment sessions. I was told while in the celestial room, welcome to our temple. I think this is it says ever dreadful of temple experiences. And yeah, that's kind
racist.
of othering. Like, it's not your temple. Yeah, welcome to our temple, as if you're some kind of a visitor, you know.
Right. So, welcome to the temple.
Yeah. Right.
So there was one here that's...
Oh, sorry. Go. I just wanted to jump on the race thing. As crazy as these kinds of stories are, these are integral and central to the Mormon experience, and what you're supposed to be striving for is this idea of eternal families. And just the fact that to start off with, people who were of African descent were considered not worthy of that, and they couldn't even get married. There was I know a lot of people know the story of Jane Manning James, but she was someone who really wanted to be sealed to her deceased husband for time and all eternity, just like all the white folks were. They continually refused to let her do that, until eventually, because she kept asking, they sort of caved and compromised. They let a white woman go into the temple as proxy for her. They still wouldn't let her in because she was Black. And they didn't have a man walk as proxy for her husband, because what they did instead was sealed her to Joseph Smith as a servant for him for eternity, rather than sealing her to her husband, like white people did, just because they were that othered and they were that different. So that's just a little bit of background. There's quite a problematic history there.
Yeah. Somebody asked about Hot Eve, and somebody else said, I remember Hot Eve. I was a guest speaker at a fireside back in 2014. Get down with the fireside. We're all in the kitchen just talking. There's 25 of us left that haven't gone home yet. And the one guy's like, hey, does anybody else have the problem where they get really turned on by Eve in the temple? Like, I can't even go to the temple. I get really aroused. And the rest of us were like, no, that's not our problem. Like, it was really strange. The guy said it out loud. It's like one of those things where you wouldn't think you'd say it out loud, but he did. Anyway, just Hot Eve. It is a thing. Yeah. Some males out there seem to have a real struggle when they go to the temple with Hot Eve. So
I've heard so many people talk about this, so many men, and actually not just men, but also women too, that are, have different feelings of a different persuasion. But I don't remember anyone ever, like, women saying, well, I guess maybe it was the same Adam a lot of the time, so a hot Adam. But, like, as far as I know, that was never a thing. I'm certain there were some women out there that also were just as delighted to see that. But I did want to say,
Satan was kind of attractive in a flamboyant sort of a way, I think, depending on what, you know what I mean? He was always the best character, the best lines, and the more flamboyant personalities. So
we did get an answer to your question in a comment, so I'll put this one up. M. Russell Ballard married us. This is from Cat Smith. And he told me to make sure to clear a path for my husband from the front door to his favorite chair when he came home. There you go.
And put some lipstick on.
And put some freaking lipstick on.
I'm sorry, I muted myself while I was looking up images of Hot Eve. And in the morning, I didn't find anything.
Turn off your safe filter.
No, I did not do that. Apparently, it doesn't go back as far as the 79. No, the Hot Eve, the general consensus was the brunette.
Yeah. And
not the blonde.
Yep. That's right.
So anyway, I couldn't find a picture of her, but I found a lot of other interesting pictures. And what is this clear a path thing from the door to the chair? I mean, what kind of pigsty is this house going to be?
Just no impediment for your husband to relax instantly after work.
Orders.
Dinner.
There's one path that's from the front door to the easy chair.
No, that's from Fascinating Womanhood. If you're familiar with that book, Fascinating Womanhood, where they give you all kinds of tips to make your husband comfortable and don't bother him with problems. If you haven't made dinner yet, put an onion in the oven and the house will smell like dinner's ready so he doesn't get agitated. All those advice. Yeah.
An onion.
An onion. Try it. It's a great tip. And you can say, it'll be ready in a minute, honey. And it's really like 6 hours away, but you have that smell of dinner. Yeah, that was in Fascinating Womanhood.
Wasn't Ballard the same guy that said put a little lipstick on and don't, talk a little, but don't talk too much?
Not too much.
Okay.
Yeah, he was.
All right.
Yeah.
I wonder if he said that as a sealer.
What's that, Maven?
I wonder if he ever said that as a sealer too, potentially.
I'm assuming he said a lot of things.
Sealer. Yeah. We've got another sealer comment. This is from Debbie. I saw a sealer literally say my best friend's name wrong the whole time during her temple sealing. And her name is common, like with common spelling. Literally, the sealer got her name wrong the whole time. And that's another thing maybe we can kind of explain is that if you are lucky and you've got an in or you happen to be related to somebody who has the ability to be an officiant at the temple, this is yet another thing that for most average members of the church, they have no control over. It's not somebody you know. It's just some random guy. So it's just, so to get marriage advice, it would be one thing if it, again, and if you're lucky, it can be your grandfather or an apostle or a leader or someone close to that can be the one that's dispensing this supposedly wise advice. But for a lot of people, it's a complete random stranger.
Yeah. Okay, I've got a few other phone calls if we want to take them.
Well, I think we should, but you want to just stop right now? Do we have 3 in the bank or 2 or what?
It's 3, and I did about 5 or 10 minutes ago make it so that no other calls could come in.
Okay, everybody. Sorry if you're not in the bank right now. We appreciate your trying, but let's go through the 3 in the bank. My story's not that good. It's not even really about the temple, so don't worry about me.
I definitely want to get to you.
We have to hear our story.
Yeah. We're gonna let you finish with that one. Caller, what's the name?
Allie.
Allie, you're on Mormonism Live with what's your temple story?
Oh gosh, there's so many. Well, to start with, I actually went through and was sealed as a child with my parents in the mid-70s, so I kind of agree with the previous caller. I did have that experience, and my parents had the one-piece barn door underwear, so that was kind of fun to deal with as a child, to see the parents walking around with the long barn door open in the backside underwear. But anyway, personal experience. When I went through the temple, my parents were not happy with the person I was marrying. And I did my best to be prepared. I bought my dress and it was high neck and the sleeves were lace. And so I lined the sleeves and I thought I had done a really good job, but I didn't line the cuffs. And the matrons were very disappointed that I didn't line and cover up my wrists. So my wrists were covered, not uncovered in the temple. So I was a bad girl to have my wrists uncovered. And I didn't have an escort, and I didn't know that you were supposed to have the temple clothes. And so I think one of the matrons had to go and get some for me from the rental place. And the whole thing of just not having anybody with me was just very traumatic and just hard to deal with. And the other thing is, when I went through the washings and anointings, the lady showed me a little scrap of paper that showed the name on it, and the name was spelled differently than I've seen it on the oracle thing. And so I didn't know for sure how to pronounce it because it wasn't a real common name. So I'm like, the last little while I've been thinking, well, is my new name with an O, without an O? Who knows? I don't know. Anyway, that's a couple of the questions, a couple of the experiences I had.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for calling in, Allie. So I guess it wasn't a bit.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Could have been
Should
Oli
we explain
bitch.
some of the context for some that might not understand
Like the
first
butt
part
flap
of your
underwear?
story?
Is that what you're?
Oh my! Oh, please
I guess,
don't
yeah,
explain.
there's that too, and that is something that Bill and RFM as converts, was not part of your childhood experience, was seeing your parents in garments. My parents didn't have the butt flap once, but they were fans of the mesh versions. So I guess you probably maybe inflicted that on your children. But no, about the escort thing, the first time that you go through the temple, there's typically somebody who's kind of like your buddy. It's like the buddy system, and it's usually, if they're worthy and they're a member, your mom for females or your father for males. It is gender specific. So if you're a girl that's got a great relationship with her dad, or vice versa, or if you're a guy and your mom's the only member and your dad isn't, she could not be your escort. It's got to be your same gender. And so and so that person is there to help you, I think, for one, feel calmer and feel like someone's kind of got your back and that you're not alone in this really strange experience. So, I thought you always had to have one, so I didn't know that you could go completely alone, and that's kind of sad. I would have assumed maybe a ward member or something would have done it. And I didn't actually have my mom as my escort for when I went to the temple. Our relationship was really on the rocks at that point, and so I used a family friend. And that kind of destroyed her relationship with my mother, because my mother was very upset about that. But anyway, that's what an escort is. So if anyone there were some funny comments about that term. I just wanted to explain that. Yeah, that's what an escort is supposed to do. Help.
And that's all they're supposed to do.
Yeah. But they help you with the clothing too. That was something that I remember being really grateful for, because it's just so confusing. So, and again, you almost always are your first time through, like the last one, and they have you up at the front, and so since most people usually kind of turn around and face the back, because you drape the things over the back of the seat until you put them all on, so you see that everybody else is just sitting down looking at you, waiting for you to finish. Obviously they're patient when they know it's your first time, but anyway, and they do have a system. Usually you have a card kind of like pinned to your chest, if I remember correctly. Pink for women, blue for men. And so it was like just kind of a beacon. It was really obvious to everyone else that you were there for your first time.
You're the first timer. So. Yeah.
I forgot about that card. That card makes everybody come up to you and say, "Isn't it wonderful?" They all whisper to you, aren't you loving it? And you're standing there with the card going, "I don't know what's happening."
Everybody's trying to convince themselves that this is the best thing in the world. And I know there's a few people out there, and I've talked to some of you, and I respect you, who really do like the ritual in the temple. I'm just talking for the other 99% of the Mormons.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I would say that too. A lot of people absolutely love the temple, and my experiences that I'm sharing, I just had extreme anxiety from childhood about the temple, and that informed every single experience I had there. So mine are certainly not typical, and I know a lot of people that have beautiful, lovely, rich experiences there. So, and I'm in no way trying to trample on those at all.
I just want to note, Maven's got one of them up there right now, the super chat. So Smitchin said he heard Country Roads, which I love that song. It's a song that connects to my mom who's passed away, but it certainly isn't a song that belongs in the temple. So Country Roads, a $10 donation from Smitchin. Thank you. Yeah. There was also...
I want to read the whole thing. Can I do that?
Oh, please. Yeah, please.
Yes.
Yeah, so he says the first time I heard the song Country Roads was by the Temple Sealer on my first time doing sealings, and the day before I went on my mission to West Virginia. He sang most of the song, and in other comments he's clarified, yes, in the temple sealing room, he sang this song to him before going on his mission. So, and I think Smitchin did try to come in on the camera, but maybe the devices weren't working, so we weren't able to see. But thanks.
Oh, no, I'm sorry if that's the case. I can see the matron blocking the door and saying, "I know what you're going to do in there. You're going to sing John Denver songs."
And then I know Thaddeus,
Bill.
That's all right. I know Thaddeus sent a couple of them. One was just saying his name, and then there's this one for $10. Thank you. I'm going to say Thaddeus, but Theodis. And then H. Venezuela, $99.99. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Appreciate the super chats, folks.
Everybody.
Yep. All right. Let me grab the next call here. Oh, go ahead, Maven.
Sorry, I wanted to jump in. This was another question I meant to answer with the last time. They said the question is rental place. There are money changers in the temple, and yeah, the answer is yes. So with the ceremonial garb that you wear, you can buy. It's always available for rent at the temple, and a lot of people will do that. And yes, it is a couple of dollars. Some temples have been cash only. Like I know I've gone to temples before with the wrong currency. They either wouldn't take my card, and that's what they had. Or they wouldn't take cash, and that's what I've had. And so, yes, so the ceremonial clothing is there, and then when you get done and you go down to the locker room to like change back into your regular clothes, they have these like gigantic slots in the wall that are basically laundry for you to put each thing in its separate one, and it all gets washed.
Right.
But you can, in Deseret Book, in the back, if you are endowed, you can show your temple recommend, and you can buy your own personal set of clothing, your own personal dress, and the ceremonial extras. And so that is that's how you get those clothes. And so again, for someone who's a convert and who's new and doesn't have the benefit of family and an escort, to have all of that walked through ahead of time, I guess I just realized for the first time with that story how little the preparation is for that situation. I think the assumption is that you have someone and can know all of these things. So there is no checklist. Obviously, temple prep is useless, but even outside of temple prep, for somebody actually on the path, it's kind of interesting that there's no help for that. Or, the assumption is just that someone else will explain it to you. And so if you don't have that someone else, then that's a very lonely, sad experience. So
is there no help for the widow's son?
Here's my as you fall out the window at Carthage, right? You can go to Deseret Industries, if anybody would like a nice white suit jacket just to wear around, maybe make a part of a good Halloween costume or something. If you need a white suit jacket, DI is a great place to go. So there's that. All right. Another caller here. What's the name, caller? Ethan? Susan, sorry about that. Susan, go ahead.
S-U-S-A-N.
Yeah, glad to have you on Mormonism Live. What's your temple story, Susan?
Well, I've only been to the temple twice in my life. I was married there in 1969, so you know the ceremony I was seeing.
Yes.
And my parents were not LDS. Well, my mother was fringe LDS, but I attended BYU on a scholarship. My roommate was one of the few returned missionaries I'd ever met there. So when I went to the temple, she accompanied me. The stake president had told me that I was going to be learning secrets of the universe. So I'm thinking physics, chemistry, all this different stuff that I'm going to be learning. And then I get into the temple, and I'm going with my roommate. We were both English lit majors, and we've been doing our practice teaching at the lab. And we had been teaching Tom Sawyer together, team teaching it. So I'm sitting here looking at this ceremony that's going on. I mean, this is absolutely crazy. I'm thinking I'm in the cave with Tom Sawyer. So I turn to my roommate and say, "Is your new name Becky? Because I think mine should be." And she goes into hysterical laughing. So they have to stop the whole ceremony, and everyone's looking at the two of us. There's my poor soon-to-be husband over on the other side wondering what's going on. We could not stop giggling. Finally, we were able to.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm telling my husband right after this, I'm never going back again. I'm sorry, you don't have, you can have an annulment. I am never returning. But then my younger sister is going to get married. My husband was in the military. We were in Germany. My mother sent us money for the tickets to go with my sister because no one else in the family could. So, okay, I'm going to go. All right. I can do it one more time, and then that's it. But I have to preface this by saying my husband's family has propensity to horrendous nosebleeds. I mean, my father-in-law died in the hospital, and he was admitted for a nosebleed. And so my husband gets these same things. We have to go to the emergency room, get a cauterization because he gushes blood. So anyway, I'm in the temple. I'm sitting by my sister. My husband is sitting over on the other side by my soon-to-be brother-in-law. And when he does this throat slitting thing, he hits my husband right in the nose. And my husband starts gushing blood all over from his nose. It covers him. It covers my soon-to-be brother-in-law and the guy in front of him. And my sister sees this, and she is, the nervousness of going to the temple and getting married, that's enough. But she goes into a scare because she's like, where's this blood coming from after we've all just slit our throats?
Let this be a lesson to all of you. Do not share your secret names.
My new secret name, Becky. But anyway, so they took my husband out and can't stop these bites. I mean, you have to get it cauterized. But he was there. All they found to help him to plug up the nose was a tampon. So my husband comes walking back in with a string of a tampon hanging down the nose and string of the temple hat kind of screwy off the side of his head. And those are my temple experiences. Never been again. But I also have things like that to tell you about my first interview. So you need to do it sometime where you talk about the interviews for 12-year-old young girls.
Oh, yeah. Okay, we'll do that.
So that's my story. Thank you for listening.
Yeah. Did your husband accidentally get the strings confused and end up tying the tampon up his nose to the robe? Yes.
I hope not.
The string was hanging down from his nose because they put the tampon in there to try and stop those bleeds. So he's got the string from the tampon and the string from the hat hooked up together.
It's hard to maintain your dignity like that.
Well, even if he wouldn't have had the nosebleed, those outfits there's dignity with those outfits. So.
Yeah, I was wondering if the temple workers.
But I've never been back again. But I am glad to hear that they're making changes.
Yes.
Supposedly.
If I'd been there, I would have thought, did this guy actually slit his throat?
That's terrible.
String the from his nose, they put the tampon in there to try and stop those bleeds. So he's got the string from the tampon and the string from the hat hooked up together. Hard to maintain your dignity like that.
Thank you, Becky.
I think I just heard that.
Yeah, I ended that. I don't know what's going on there.
Susan, thank you so much.
I just have to say, what she said was so interesting when she said, I didn't want to do it, but I'm going to go back one more time. It'll be fine. I'll go to my sister's wedding, right? That's how it always happens. It's not. For example, after all of my traumatic experiences, about 3 years later, a friend was getting married. And I'm like, okay, my husband and I can go. It's fine. I don't go to the temple, but I can go into the temple. It was a temple where you wear street clothes. I will just show my recommend. I will go in. I will go to the wedding. What could happen, right? What could be wrong? No. So we're waiting for everybody to get there. We're in the lobby, and my husband and I sit on a bench in the lobby. And it happens to be over on the side. There's a women's dressing room and a men's dressing room, and then there's a counter where you would purchase clothing. And so we happened to sit on a bench in the lobby on the side where you would enter to go to the women's locker room. So we're just sitting there talking, waiting for everybody else to show up to go to see this ceiling. And suddenly this matron, it probably was the same one, I don't know, she comes running over. She goes, "Sir," she says to my husband, "you are going to have to move." And he's like, "What?" I'm sitting here with my wife. We're waiting to go in a wedding. She goes, "Sir, I have watched you peeping into the women's locker room." I mean, you can't peep into these locker rooms. They have doors. They have like a little, you go through a area where you go around corners. He's like, "What are you talking about? I'm sitting here with my wife. We're going to go watch somebody get sealed." She goes, "I'm sorry. you need to move. I can see you peeping into the women's locker room. We got up and moved, but my thought was, okay, if we did peep, honestly, what would we see? I mean, really, would you want to peep that? I don't know. But again, that's kind of how they get you. What could happen? Another traumatic event like that. So I hear you, Susan.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was Susan the last caller on the line, Bill?
I thought so.
There's one more.
Let's have
this
this
is the
one be
last one. This is, I believe,
I'm going to forego my story.
This is it.
Time. It's a childhood story.
This call's been waiting 20. Yeah, this one's been waiting 25 minutes.
Oh, let's bring this person on.
Crystal. Yep. Are you there? Is it Crystal?
Crystal, yes. Hi.
Yeah.
Sorry, my is choppy.
Welcome to Mormonism Live.
Tell us your for letting me share. Thanks. I love you guys. Okay, so I was dating my first husband, got divorced, got married again, had 2 children with him, which we were sealed to. And then when I got divorced and remarried, we got pregnant pretty soon after, and then went through of sealed in the temple, and I had to get unsealed from my first husband, and of course my new husband didn't have to get unsealed from his first wife, who he had divorced. Not big. And then the application process for that is also very traumatic, having to relive all your bad experiences and trauma with your spouse. And you have to list all of your past transgressions, even if you've repented. So that was really difficult. But in the process of applying, we had our new little baby, and the stake president came back and said, well, this baby was actually born under the covenant with you and your first husband, since you guys aren't sealed yet. So we have to get special permission from the first presidency to let you guys get sealed to your baby. So that was really interesting. We did get a letter from
I'm only laughing, Chris.
Thomas S. And it talked about how. Sorry, what?
I'm sorry. I was just explaining
that RFM?
on the screen. I'm laughing, but I'm only laughing because it's so horrible. These people have no idea what they're doing. They're making this up as they go along, and they make it up in the worst way possible.
Yeah. I think Bill's frozen, so I think our caller's frozen also. Bill.
Uh-oh.
If you hear us.
I'm just
Crystal,
not hearing the
there?
caller.
Oh, okay. She maybe ended the call.
Yeah, she did. She hung up. So
I guess that was her story. But yeah, this is the kind of thing that happens. It is so nuts.
Yep.
Okay. And the reason I say that is because even if we accept Joseph Smith is getting the revelation about the eternal marriage and all this stuff in the temple, everything thereafter has been post hoc, case by case basis, making it up as they go along. And what she's describing, I have experienced it as well, is this idea that she's married to one man. They were married in the temple. They get divorced. She gets married to this other guy civilly, right? They get pregnant right away. They have a baby before she and second husband can get to the temple. So now this baby is not born under any covenant between the mom and the baby's dad, because they're not sealed in the temple. But they are born under the covenant of the first marriage that this woman, Crystal, has with her first husband. So now she's divorced this husband and had a baby with her second husband, right? The second baby belongs to the first husband. That's what she's describing. If any of you weren't following along with that. It is
a lot of people, they don't realize this until you see it in action. And I have a family friend where this happened. She was married. Her husband died. She had no children with him. She marries again. She lives a long life. She has 5 children. Those children don't belong to the second husband because she's been sealed to the first husband. And they just assume it's going to work itself out. But the idea that you aren't even entitled to your own children, and this second husband goes along with that. He understands that and thinks that it will work out later. And these are the kind of questions that are asked like at conference by women who say, what about my first husband, my second husband? And people like President Oaks laugh at that. It's not a laughing matter if you believe in this. It's your family, it's your life. These things are infuriating if you really think them through.
Yeah, if the celestial kingdom weren't true, the apostles would have destroyed it long ago.
There are a couple other super chats. Again,
is it Theotis again, or is it the same $10?
Theotis J. Whoopi sent another $10. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Very prolific this evening. Thank you.
There's that.
Yeah.
Do you read the ones where they
cite anything they? What's that?
That's a good one.
Yeah, because Theotis had said something with his donation. I thought he says you can call me Theotis.
You can call me.
I got it right. Jay Whoopi. Yeah. And thank you for this very entertaining podcast. You all are wonderful. See, wasn't that worth it to read that?
Yeah. And then Chris Murphy said, can anyone cite anything they learned in the temple ever other than passwords and handshakes?
Exactly.
So thanks, Chris, for that donation.
Oh, yeah. And there's always this thing that Hugh Nibley would
always.
All right,
folks. Appreciate the super chats.
And Hugh Nibley was lying when he said it, that he always learns.
I didn't
see
that
that one. Something new when he goes to the temple. How many people have heard that?
Yeah. Well, you're always waiting for meat, right? Milk, meat. There's that elusive meat that's out there that's supposed to be in the temple. I never saw any meat in the temple.
There is none. And so you always go and you don't learn anything. So you make stuff up to try and make the promise come true. And then when that fails and your imagination fails you, then you feel guilty because you must not be righteous enough to be learning something every time you go through the temple, like Hugh freaking Nibley.
Yeah.
And what does Susie Q say?
Q says was given his. Yeah. Am I breaking up?
Oh yeah, all over the place, man. You want me to read this?
Go ahead and read it, please.
Yeah.
Maven, could you read this from Maven?
Oh, you want me? Sorry, I thought you were going to read it. Okay. Susie Q says, my husband was given his own name as his new name, which is not how it's supposed to work. The first time he went through the temple, he let the worker know, and it was quickly changed to Amulek instead. I guess God got confused, which is interesting because, so you're given a new name, and if it just so happens, and this is on rotation, and the rotation is available online at fullerconsideration.com. So if you happen to have the actual name that you're supposed to receive, you're supposed to default to Adam or Eve. So
that's what I thought too. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're going through and, I guess your name is David. So I had a friend named David, and I think David was the name being given out to men going through that day. So he got Adam. That was the default. So it's interesting that
maybe it was Adam. If the default name is your name and that is your day, then what? Maybe you're Amulek. Maybe that's how it works.
But then you have the regular name that will cover you.
Right. So if Amulek had been the name that day, then his name would have had to have been Amulek, if that makes sense.
Let's err on the side of Nimrod. Name. I think Nimrod's a safe bet. Most people today are not going to walk in with the name Nimrod.
Most people. God help you.
To all the Nimrods out there. I'm really sorry.
God help you if your name is Maher Shalal Hashbaz.
Don't we need RFM story now?
Sorry, we got a default, man. That's the new name for the day. Maher Shalal Hashbaz. No, actually, we're not going to do my story because we're approaching 2 hours.
That makes me feel guilty. I told so many stories and everyone's waiting for yours.
That's my plan, is to make you feel guilty about it. No, it's not that great a story, everybody. This is what a good host does and what I do too, which is I try and have other people be able to tell their stories, have the audience tell their stories. And I'm just sort of here juggling and spinning the plates with Bill's help. And Maven's help too, because she's doing all the stuff. What?
One or the other.
Yes,
or my interference. Yes. Yeah.
Got it. Well, that's all for tonight, everybody, on Mormonism Live. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for being here, Rebecca Bibliotheca, and joining us as our very special guest. Thank you, Maven, for everything that you do to make this show work. Thank you, Bill, for everything that you do as well. And so, Bill, do you want to just announce what next week's going to be, or we'll just let that be a surprise?
delay, I will say that we are going to cover what celestial marriage is from before 1890, and we will examine if celestial marriage or the new and everlasting covenant equals what the church wants us to think today that it is.
Actually, a very, very important subject. And people who are not familiar with the subject may not get how important that is just from that brief description. But yeah, there's been a lot of rebranding, taking things that once meant something one way in the LDS church, and then it's in the scriptures, right? Especially section 132. And then changing that over time so that now the same phrase means something completely different because we're not practicing plural marriage anymore.
Yeah, get into that next week.
Sounds good.
Gonna be good.
Good.
Gonna be good.
Thank you, everybody.
We'll
Once
see you
again, thank you. Yes, thank you for watching. Join us next week on Wednesday, January 17th at 6:20 p.m. Mountain Time. Same bat time, same bat channel for Mormonism Live. Good night, everybody.
Jehovah, Michael. See yonders matter unorganized. Go ye down, and organize it into a world like unto the world ye have here to your first day.